tell the world who you are and what you do.
Hey, what's up, brother? I'm Elijah Prada with Socal Presa. We've been breeding Presa Canarios now for over 20 years. I've started in 2002. Pretty much starting this for my family. I wanted guard dogs, and I was starting to look into them. I was born here in the U.S., but my family is from Spain. They're from Tenerife, and so we decided to do a bunch of research, and it just so happened that I was talking to my grandmother, and she reminded me that we had family back in Spain that had these type of dogs. And so I booked a 2-month trip out there, visited family, took my time, and went to not only families who had these dogs, but their friends, their relatives, and other breeders out there. I took quite a lot of time. I ended up importing a couple back, and I really didn't think about breeding at first, but then I started doing training specifically with the Presas, and then I started doing other working line dog training, and from there, people were just pretty ecstatic on how I was raising and training my dogs, and I figured, well, I would possibly like to see some pups, and go from there. It was kind of weird. It was something that struck me from when I was a kid. Actually, the first dog I ever trained, I was 13, and my parents had a German Rottweiler, and I was in the backyard smoking a cigarette. This dog jumps the fence and scares the heck out of me. Well, this stray ended up getting her pregnant, and so I ended up taking care of the pups. I ended up doing whatever I could. I ended up selling them because my parents were they didn't care. So I guess that kind of triggered the love that I had for puppies and raising them, which is why I got into breeding at first. Mm-hmm. And so from there, pretty much, we've just been doing this back and forth for all this time. This isn't my main trade, but this is definitely my labor of love. I'm a programmer by trade, and I do a lot of online security stuff. So I get to be at home and get to be around my dogs all the time. We have 4 Presas in the house right now that are adults. I have 9 puppies, all in the house as well. So quite a lot of dogs. This is a pretty big house, thankfully, and it is freezing temperatures out here in southeast Texas. So it's a good thing that they're in the house, man. And really quick, man, like we were chatting about before this, I do appreciate your channel. I like what you're doing for the breeding circle and letting everybody get their stories out there. So thank you, man. You're doing a great service for the community.
I appreciate that, man. I really do. Now, we were chatting before, and I said I wanted you to say it again on record just so people knew. Mm-hmm. You're in Texas now, but you're from California, correct?
Yes. I was born in California. I've been out there all my life. We've just came out here to Texas about a little over a year ago. Mm-hmm. And just so we can get a bigger space, bigger property for the dogs, better way of living, more economical. And it seems to do just that. So we're pretty happy out here. We do ship them all over the United States, so that's not an issue. And I have a bunch of reserves now for this particular litter that I'm going to be flying out directly to them. The pups are going to be on board the plane with me in cabin and sending them to their airport. We'll do like a drop off, and we'll get to pick them up right then and there, and I'll just fly back. So pretty easy stuff. I try to stay away from the cargo, mm-hmm. just because it's so much harder. You have to make sure that the timing taking off and landing is perfect for the weather. If it's too hot or too cold, it just doesn't want to work out right. And plus, then the other dogs are like freaking out, right. Typically. So it just kind of calls for a big mess, I guess. In the end, the pups that end up there are like they vomited or made a big mess of it. So
yeah. Now, do you ever use like ground shippers, or do you stick to planes?
Yeah, no, never yet, man. I actually almost did once, but it just didn't go through, man. Come to find out that company had changed their name. they were having like pups die and stuff on the road for whatever reason. Like their air conditioning wasn't working. It was a big old mess. So these guys ended up changing their name, and we lost like a couple $100 just because we had already booked it through them. But come to find out that they were doing some shady stuff, so we just ended up canceling that whole thing. So yeah, if anybody's listening to that part, yeah, definitely do your homework, because man, it is nuts. I talked to somebody else who was like, literally, he had a bunch of money. He was having people adopt dogs and shipping them out through this company, and this guy lost a few dogs through that particular place. So,
well,
yeah.
I definitely know some people that use some pretty reliable ground shippers if you ever need one.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, because I know the airports in general can be a headache. So if it's just a few states away or something, and I know somebody in the area, I could definitely link you up to that. But I had this other big question. There on my channel, I'll put it this way. Okay, there's two sides that are kind of at each other's throat about the Presa.
Okay.
And you might kind of already know where I'm going with this. There's this big debate over the standard and whether the Presa should be, this big mastiff dog, or whether it's more of a slim, athletic, more of a, I guess, gamier dog. What are your thoughts on that? Because I haven't seen many of your pictures yet, except for what was on Instagram. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's definitely quite a lot of confusion out there. There's a ton of lore, stories galore, history that's been convoluted, history that's been told by people that have done a selective amount of research and put together their own books or whatever knowledge pools that they have. I can tell you first thing of being out there, getting the stories from my family that have had these dogs forever, and knowing multiple people who not only have raised them but have had them in the bloodline of their family for going on over 100 years. It is definitely the mastiff family. It's a molosser breed. They can be all over the place as far as their stature goes. I understand that like UKC, AKC, they have certain conformation, which that is what we shoot for, is the typical conformation of how they're supposed to look. Size wise though, we have always desired larger versions of the Presa Canario. And that's just our preference, really. For everything else, we want it right on point. We want the hindquarters higher than the front. We want the jowls great. Everything under the sun should be to conformation. Size can definitely vary, and really that's all preference. We've had smaller Presa Canario before. I just try not to highlight too much of that in my breeding, because of course, if you're going to breed smaller dogs, that's what you're going to get in the end. But at the same time, I'm not trying to have the biggest Presa Canario. That's absolutely irrelevant to me. Some of our dogs have been huge, and some of it is just so big that I don't want to breed it, just because I don't want to mess with that conformation, because you can start losing certain traits that makes it such a special breed. So I guess that's a long story of all that. There's definitely a lot of confusion, and people can feel how they feel and say what they want to say, and the Presa community is definitely rough. It's just like the rest of them. Everybody wants to be really a know-it-all, and hey, you're wrong, I'm right, and so on and so forth. But we have our practices. Everything's worked out fine. We don't have any health issues, mental issues with our dogs. They're perfect. So I'm definitely glad to be a part of that. And in the end, I just want to keep the legacy going of the true Presa Canario with no nonsense involved. You know, we have a really good program going on. We've been doing this for a very long time, and in the time that I've been doing this, I have analyzed quite a lot of breeders and how they do things. I've visited a ton of breeders in the States. I've seen what I like, what I don't like, mostly what I don't like. And yeah, the way I'm doing it is much harder. It takes way more time and effort. I can hear the pups when I'm laying down to bed. But I mean, what you're getting when you're putting in that much effort is just such a better mentally balanced dog. Like by the time they leave here at 8 weeks old, they're urinating and defecating on command. They're not scared of anything. I've put them through fireworks training. I've done obedience training, protective training, everything under the sun. So they hear whatever, vacuum cleaners, whatever's going on. They don't care. When it comes to 4th of July, you don't need to drug them. You need to drug yourself because of the anxiety you're going to get from them barking all the time. Because they just want to chase those fireworks. They're literally chasing them.
So you do all this before you sell a puppy?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I have literally, I just bought fireworks recently for this particular set of pups. So I have a full bag ready to go for these guys. Yeah. So and yesterday I was cleaning the floors with the carpet cleaner, just like on the tile, right? Just because it's just so much easier to do with the carpet cleaner, but it's so loud. And I filmed it yesterday. They were literally sleeping we moved them over from their playpen area to the crate. Mm-hmm. And I cleaned up that whole floor. I had to put a tarp down before the blanket. And then they were sleeping through the whole thing. They didn't care at all. And it's big. I mean, I've heard reports of people getting presses specifically, and like they can't even step indoors on the tile. It literally freaks them out because they've never been indoors in their life. Mm. So I mean, it all really adds up to a really balanced dog, and that's what I'm trying to give my clients in the end, is like a clean slate. I want something that they can adapt to their family, and it's something like a beautiful thing. You know, they can have it be whatever they want, mm-hmm. Whether it's a protective dog, or just a dog that you can just come up to and just pet, and it'll be cool, and it doesn't have any protective instincts. It's up to my clients in the end what they're actually going to gear for, but I want to have it like balanced like that to where they can have whatever they want. You know, that's basically my goal, is really just to sell happiness in the end.
Right. So looking at your dogs on Instagram, mm-hmm. they definitely look like more of a molosser type. But what are the general weight guidelines? Like, what are some of the smallest ones you've produced, and what are some of the largest ones you produced, and then what is the weight that you look for specifically?
So well, I guess we'll start on the males, and the males pretty much the smallest we've ever had was about 110 pounds as a male. Mm-hmm. So pretty small. He was with my female that was 130 pounds. And so, you know, it was just a significant difference. And I loved his qualities so much that, and I loved the female that I had so much that we paired them together. And then because of that pairing, the puppies that they gave birth to were pretty big. Mm-hmm. So typically for the males, we're looking at about 27, 28 inches at the withers, anywhere from 145 to 165 pounds, generally. Mm-hmm. That's generally what we're shooting for. But they can go over that quite a bit. So we have them that they can be anywhere from 29, 30 inches at the withers, gaining up to 180 pounds, and that's slim. It's like no fat, no belly, nothing. Females can range generally anywhere from 24 to 26 inches at the withers. And this is now at this point. This is, 20 years later. 24, 26 inches at the withers, and pretty much anywhere from 110 to 135.
Gotcha.
Typically. Now it can, give or take 10 pounds, no problem. But it really varies. Definitely on the type of exercise they're doing, the type of food they're giving, and pretty much, yeah, they're going to vary in the pack for sure.
So, okay, as far as the big Presa debate, is there 2 or more different types of Presa, or is the Presa just the Presa?
Oof, well, that's kind of a hard one. So, in my opinion, I would say the Presa is just the Presa.
Mm-hmm.
I think it can get too convoluted way too quickly when you're breaking down different variants of the Presa, and I've seen that many times to where people will say, okay, well, the body is just so much slimmer, it's not as thick, but that's not the case that I've seen in real life. I've seen something different. I've seen them come from the same litters. They have a different structure, different look to them. Not to a huge margin, but yeah, when you have a connoisseur eye for a certain breed, you're gonna notice these little details. Like, it's gonna stand out to you. So for me, I've been able to see this firsthand, single-handedly, is being there in so many people's breeding grounds and seeing the dogs that have came from one litter, and they do look different. So I can't really agree that, this one's going to be even a Dogo Canario, as they want to say. There's just so many different versions that people want to call out there. I can't say for sure. It's one thing that will creep up in time is the variety of a working line in comparison to like a pet or show quality line, which I've really tried to balance out. I've always worked with the working line Presa Canario, and I understood what indicated a show quality coat. So I've always looked for having the show quality coat in the working line Presa Canario. So that is definitely one of our strong points, is whatever you're getting from us, it's gonna, you can basically enter it into the show, or you can go and hunt with this thing, no problem. I know there's a lot of craziness out there with breeders wanting to kind of push their own agendas. I mean, we're really not about that. We try to put out solid information and let it rest. But there'll always be flack in any community, dog breeding especially. It's extremely competition, a lot of competition in a negative way, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. My mentor, when I first started off, was she's passed since, but at the time when she started training me, she was a 25-year show dog person that would attend the AKC shows, and win awards. She was like a brand champion, purple, whatever, it was insane. And so I understood about showing, about the craziness in the show world. So I have a lot of experience with what's out there as far as how people can just try to bring down another kennel. And that's something that I just want to point out that I will never do. If anybody ever calls me and asks me, what do I think of another kennel, you will not get my answer. Mm-hmm. Because I don't talk bad about anybody else. I think that's just, if I have to do that to sell what I'm doing, then I need to do a better job. Like, it's just not right. And I just don't ever talk about people like that. So
I like that.
Yeah, that's just
quality.
not me.
That's a good quality to have.
Thank you.
So, all right, your family goes back to, yeah, how do you pronounce it? Tenerife?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Exactly.
I was hoping so, because I did a quick breed video a long time ago, and I was like, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
So, what is the exact history of the Presa?
They have a pretty long history. Honestly, it's hard for me to recall all the stuff because there's just so much of it. Mm-hmm. But they had pretty much a history of being utilized in war scenarios, and that was ages and ages and ages ago. And then they basically had an issue to where they were losing the capability of having them around. They ended up researching at one time. Then at the time, once they started researching, the farmers were having a big issue with just random dogs coming into their farms. So then from there, they started using them to kill these dogs, which they were excellent at doing. And then from there, they started doing dog fighting, which was terrible, and they ended up outlawing that. And it just slowly started building into more of like a normal breeding program. I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. I mean, sorry if my history isn't the best. It's been a very long time since I've tried to do any research on that, so it's kind of hard for me to retain that specifically.
I understand. So, with the Presa being such a large dog, I noticed with some large dogs, like the English Mastiff, the Great Dane, things like that, some of them could be very breakable. Do you have to be careful with things like that with the Presa, or are they more rugged?
Okay, so yeah, that's a great question. So I would look at it like their body structure is more of like a power lifter. You know, they're very strong. They have an explosive amount of energy. But yeah, they don't have that. You know, typically they have so much weight behind them that, yeah, they could possibly hurt themselves, like, for sure. It's not saying that they can't do some wild stuff, especially depending on that particular Presa's size and endurance and their physicalness. It is going to vary, you know, depending on that dog and what we put them through per se. But yeah, I mean, high agility dog, like a pit bull, just, you know, being able to jump 12 feet in the air. Yeah, it's not that. Mm-hmm. But that being said, yeah, we have them to where, like, for instance, our current stud, his sister, she's 145 pounds, and she will jump on the, what are these, like, tractor, or they're like a bulldozer, these, you know, the giant bulldozer tires. She will jump on one of those. I've seen her in slow motion jump on a 5-foot electrical box. And she's amazing. So they do have some pretty awesome endurance like that. But I mean, for me, I understand that, you know, you're bringing that, you're putting that weight back on the floor eventually. So like for Bane's 165 pounds. I don't really want him jumping like crazy for no reason, and possibly, you know, tearing something. It's just my protective instincts. I mean, Now when it comes down to bite training, yeah, I mean, go all out, like chase this guy down, and they have to be fully suited up, and oh yeah, they're going nuts. But we're, you know, they're definitely a lot bigger. This isn't like a Malinois, you know, to where it's like, it doesn't weigh anything. Yeah, you can throw this thing at somebody,
right?
You know, and throw them through a window,
yeah,
and delete them up. So
yeah. So the Presa, from what I've seen, is just an all-out killing machine. Like when they have an issue with somebody, I've seen some pretty gnarly footage of how mean these dogs can actually get. Now, is that something you have to train, or does that come factory?
So some of it is innate, for sure, but that is the balance of the nurture and nature. So, like, our bloodline has it in it, but you're usually getting a pup from us at about 8 weeks. So if you're not gonna train for that, then it's gonna get washed out of their mind. They're gonna not have any need to do that. Now, that being said, they are gonna have that instinct still in them, but to what degree? So if you do train for that, though, with my line specifically, they're very emotional about it, extremely. So they will put 150% of their emotion into doing whatever that is, like by work, guarding work. They drive it home 100%. They're very, very, they can be very aggressive towards strangers and anything that's coming into their area that they're unfamiliar with. So when we're training for that, it's a double-edged sword. I let my clients know that is the downside of it, that if you're going to create something like that, it's a liability too, because you don't want to get sued and get your house taken away now because the damn dog bit somebody that you didn't want him to. If there's an intruder, oh well, do what you have to do. Don't let him make it out the door. Otherwise, it can be a pretty scary thing for sure. I've been bit one time separating two of my girls, and it was purely reactionary. I still have the girl. She's literally in my wife's office right now. And I know it was reactionary. I had two girls they had it out for each other. And sure enough, I was bringing in the barbecue. One of my girl, Negra, decided to go and try to fight Savo through the door. She's seen her paw like hanging out like bait, through under the door. So she runs over there and slides and throws her own paw underneath the door. And sure enough, the other dog bit the paw. And I'm like, oh, great. So she's screaming her butt off. I open the door. So now that they both have the capability of like getting to each other, and my wife's there, she's freaking out. We're trying to separate them, but Savo, my other girl, extremely hot-tempered. She wanted to kill her, so she wouldn't let go of her foot. Negra was like reactionary, and so she bit me 3 times in a matter of a minute or two. Again, and I'm saying reactionary because if this was like really trying to hurt me, I would have been a lot worse off. But in those 3 bites, I was bleeding like a stuffed pig. It was insane. So the damage they can do is just, it can be nuts. And it's the worst thing about it is that the only thing that people remember about these dogs was the lady who got killed in San Francisco many, many, many years ago. And that's like people always retell that, like they never forget it. So, which is why we have to be really stringent on who we sell to. Just because if people don't want to take that responsibility of like training them right, raising them right, well, it's just going to be a direct reflection of their owner. It's like you have a bad kid. It's usually because you have it's like a bad parent. Right. So it's the same type of ordeal there. So, but really from what I always help my clients as much as possible get to the point to where they want to get with their dog. So like, do you want a protective dog? Do you want a friendly dog? Well, let's discuss it and let's see how we get there. Bane per se, he's the stud I was telling you about in my house. He's had a whole bunch of litters. One of his sons is named Lucifer, and this dog is a sweetheart. He's just as big as he is. He's got more of his mom's body, pretty slim, but huge nonetheless. I want to say he's 150 pounds, Lucifer. And he's a sweetheart. He's an absolute sweetheart. His parents are extremely well off. They live in Brentwood, and takes him to the farmer's market. I have videos out there on him. Just walking around, people are petting him. They're like, oh my God, he's a reverse brindle, so he stands out like a sore thumb. And people love him. But again, that's all on his raising. It's if he was to raise him like how I did it, maybe not so much like that, you know. I try not to confuse them. If I want them to be guard dogs, they're gonna stay in that guard dog element. I'm not gonna put somebody at risk by, you know, oh, maybe my dog's gonna react or whatever to something, and I wasn't looking on time. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, big responsibility nonetheless. But
so these are definitely not for everyone.
No, definitely not for anybody. I would say 9 times out of 10, it's not a first dog, you know, for anyone really. And you have to have some sense of discipline in your life. You have to be an alpha male or female, doesn't even matter. But you have to learn how to set the ground and do it correctly. They are sensitive as well, like mentally. It's pretty weird because as tough as they are, they're really sensitive. So if you start crapping on them mentally, you know, you make them feel like crap, they're gonna act weird. So you have to be really balanced about how you're training them and what you're doing with them, what you're exposing them to, because then it's like, well, this dog sucks now, and you're wondering why, and it's pretty much because of, you know, what you put them through. So, but if you have that response, if you're up for that responsibility, they're great with just you and them. They actually shine the most if they're the only dog, because they are so intelligent that you can really mold them to be whatever you want. They will be exactly how you want them. They'll follow you everywhere in the house. You know, no privacy, but it's only because they love you. They want to be your companion. And you can literally take them anywhere and everywhere without an issue. So I know we have, as an example, we have Lonnie Walker, who's he should still be playing on the Lakers, and he's got like PTSD, so he's got one of our Presas, Zola, and he would take Zola everywhere. He would buy her a plane ticket, she'd fly on the plane with him, take her to the games, she'd be right there, everybody'd be good with her, and the dog was like a emotional service dog for him. So that's a really good one. I have a bodybuilder in Florida. He's got narcolepsy, and he trained our Presa to be his service dog, you know, to get him up if she sees him nodding off and stuff. So, and there's a bunch of stories that we have of people who have issues, you know, besides like wanting a protection dog, but actually have some type of physical or mental slight, you know, disability or whatever you'd want to call it, and they help quite a bit.
Didn't you mention something about a Joe Rogan clip?
Yeah. So it was a while back. We had a fan send us the clip. Joe Rogan went over our dogs on his show. He was just talking about them for a few minutes, and we ended up getting the clip and reposting it on our channel, just so people wouldn't have to try to find it. You know, he's got like, I don't know, who knows, 3,000 episodes at this point. So it was just it was only about a 1.5, 2 minute long clip, so we ended up clipping it and putting it onto our channel, which people could see on there. Everything that if anybody wants to find us, it's Socal Presa on anything. That's Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and it's on our YouTube page.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it was more of like a comedic thing. Yeah, he was kind of more on just a rant that they would do something dirty to you, and I'm like, oh my God, Joe! Out of all the times you can bring us up, it's like you're 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 going off on some weird comical thing, but you know, he's a comedian, so
Right.
Can't blame him. It was kind of funny though. It was a little shocking at first, but it was nice that he had literally shown all our dogs in that video, so it was pretty cool. You'll see Bane in there, you'll see Negra in there, I think you'll see Lucifer, you'll see Toro, Morticia. You'll see a bunch of our dogs in that particular video, and it's cool because he doesn't show any other dogs, so it's pretty nice. But
That's neat.
yeah,
That's a sign of making it.
yeah. Thanks, man.
So,
Appreciate it.
of course. Now, I don't know much about Texas, but I know there's areas that are just hot as balls, and areas that are more mild and get pretty cold winters. And where are you at exactly?
So we're Southeast Texas. We're close to Houston. Right now, literally it is, there's some snow that's coming down right now. So, oh yeah, I could literally see it on the house. And this just happened within the time I've been speaking to you. So this is the first time that the snow is starting to come in. And it does get pretty hot out here and pretty cold. Oh, sorry if you can hear the pups in the background. My wife is taking care of them right now, but
No, it's all right.
they're crying. They want some food, so she's out there handling them. But yeah, like for instance, I mean, this is another reason why, because so these guys are, you know, in Spain, it's pretty mild in the islands right there. The weather's pretty nice all the time. So they have a perfect coat for that. It's one layer. It doesn't have a multitude of that. So when they're in their house, there's really not much hair. And since it's not multi-layer, I mean, that's considered a hair instead of coat. So imagine like in certain extreme climates, you're going to have issues, you know? So like we have clients in Canada who have these dogs of ours, and they have to take precautions because within a certain amount of time, I mean, their feet like freeze being outside, just because they don't have these features to protect them. Mm-hmm. So it's good that we raise them this way, because otherwise they'd be miserable. I mean, I don't know what I would do. Like, you know, heated kennel or something. I mean, I've never even used kennels, so I don't know what I would do.
Right.
But yeah, it's freezing right now. I guess to answer your question, like literally, it's freezing. We have to have our pool on cycled on high right now so the pump doesn't freeze or the lines don't crack.
Gotcha. So they're not so good in either extreme, whether hot or cold.
Pretty much.
Gotcha.
Pretty much. So yeah, something to keep in mind if you're living in a more extreme climate, then yeah, you're definitely gonna want to pay attention to them a little bit more. There are some can be prone to hot spots from the sun, depending on the shade of their coat. So we have them anywhere from fawn to black brindle, reverse brindle, and then jet black. The jet black gets pretty hot in the sun, for sure. So you'll see them panting a lot more than some of our other colors.
Before we were on record, you mentioned that you did an article comparing the Presa to the Corso. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. So for people that don't have a really good eye for it, most people, they will, and I can say this easily because I've been doing this for so long. So most people that will see a Presa Canario will just automatically assume it's a Cane Corso for whatever reason. But a true Corso and a true Presa, if you put them back to back and you look at them in person, there's a significant look that's just different. They look like completely different dogs. So I just don't see how people can compare them. Of course, my preference, and this is not biased, is the Presa Canario. It is just everything I've ever wanted. Excuse me, not raised, but trained Corsos. They have a different guarding instinct. It seems like it's more driven out of work instead of like pleasure. The Presas want to do this out of emotion. Like they feel like they're really making you happy to do that, and they do it out of like pure emotion. It just seems like it comes from the heart. The Corsos will drool. I don't have any drooling issues whatsoever with my Presa Canario. The Presas have the hind quarters that are higher than the front, which gives them a cat-like gait to them. We never crop the tails on our Presa ever. And to be honest, I do like the Corso's coat just a little bit more because it is shorter. It's not as coarse. Mm-hmm. But, it's kind of insignificant. But, if I want to be really choosy, I kind of like it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I guess those are kind of like the biggest differences in my opinion. You're going to have sizes that are all over the place. So some Corsos are going to be pretty big. Typically not, but you'll occasionally have it. So, mm-hmm. But yeah, for anybody who hasn't seen them back to back, there's like no confusion once you do see them in person. So I hope more people kind of get to see that, because literally anybody who has a Presa Canario, like a lot of people will have shirts and they'll say, no, it's not a King Corso. Just because it's that common for people to say that. Like, it's funny. Like, you can walk a Presa anywhere. Anybody who has a Presa, they can walk them anywhere. And people are going to be like, oh, that's a nice Corso. It's when people stop you and they're like, oh, that's a nice Presa. You're like, what? Oh my God. Well, how on earth did you know what this was? I remember somebody came to my house when we were in California, and he was quoting us for something, I don't know, painting the house or something. And he got to see him through the fence, and I sent them all in because, they're all guard dogs. And I let him in, and he's like, man, those are nice Presas. I'm like, how did you know that? And he's like, oh, because I have King Corsos, so I know. I'm like, oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense now. So, yeah, typically people don't get it,
I got you. How would you compare the male and the female when it comes to temperament and trainability and things like that?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question, actually. So, I'm glad you asked. Typically people want... Let me see, I'm coming over here in my kitchen, so you may hear them a little bit. So typically people want a male, generally because of the size. They're usually a bit bigger, like significant amount. But when it comes to aggression, protection work, honestly, there's just no doubt in my mind that the females are far more superior. Mm-hmm. You can't, as an example, you can't get them off your yard for anything. So if there's like coyotes that are trying to bait her into leaving, coyotes will bring a female in heat. And that is going to distract your male of any breed, typically, regardless of whatever training you've done with them. You can rappel from a helicopter, you can do all types of military training, and they smell a dog in heat, and they're gone. They're like, I want to get laid. I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. You can't do that with a female. And so also the females are very, very passionate and overprotecting of their family. So for me, I like them more. It just seems like they're as much as they have that extra quality of being, that they could be a lot more vicious, they just seem like they're better protectors. Mm-hmm. So that's from what I've noticed, and this works for forever as far as how I'm ascertaining my particular bloodline. All my girls are always hotter than the males. All of them. Could be to impart how I raise them, which isn't really much different. I don't raise them any different, but maybe they see that. Dogs are pretty intuitive and how they're they're watching their owners and what they're expecting of them to do. Mm-hmm. So could be possibly a part of that, but in general, that's how I've always seen the females. They're always way more aggressive than the males. They're better protectors. Yeah, and you can't get them off your yard. As a matter of fact, it's funny because just speaking of King Corsos, my cousin, who's a trainer, he has 2 Corsos, which I helped train at the time. They're full-on guardians, and he keeps them out. He keeps them outdoors at night. He's got an acre property in California, and when they were out there at night, he's got cameras all around, but it seemed like somebody broke into their side of the gate. They brought a female in heat, so somebody had already known that he had these dogs. So this robber guy, brought the female in heat. He cut the fence open. They were already, of course, under the influence of this girl in heat. So he's trying to corral them into his truck, which doesn't happen. They start turning on him. The guy takes off, and these Corsos get into the neighborhood, like a few blocks away. And this is now, by this time, it's the morning time. So somebody lets them into the yard because they're like, oh, look at this. I got 2 awesome looking free dogs now. They're just roaming the block because these guys are mine. Brings them into the yard. By then they're already snapped out of it. So they're starting to turn on the guy. He runs in the house, calls the cops. Somehow or another, my cousin is just driving around and sees that this happening. Asks the cop, hey, what's going on there? Oh yeah, they got the 2 dogs. Oh, those are my dogs. Anyways, my cousin ends up getting fined for this. He ends up having to go to court. They're like, oh, those are dangerous dogs. You need to neuter them. Literally gets his backyard broken into. Somebody tries to steal the dogs, and the dude gets fined for it. I guess that's just my past point of, in general, why I think the females are more superior just on that part alone.
Right. Now, if you absolutely had to pick another breed, what would it be?
Oh, man. Oh, brother, you hit me on the sidewinder with that one. Looks-wise, I love the Caucasian Shepherd. I think they're beautiful. My personal findings with that is that they're not very good with what I like as far as training goes. I would probably say the Rottweiler, just because it is still a large and dominant dog, but it seems like, because I've raised one personally, I have trained them, and I know that they're a lot easier to deal with. They don't have such an aggression, such a crazy temperament, and all the things that follow. So I would look at the Presa as pretty much twice what a Rottweiler can be. So yeah, just on that alone, just because I have this experience of raising this particular breed for so long, that it comes with a price. It's freaking hard.
Right.
Especially if you have more than one. Oh yeah, you're up for a challenge for sure. For sure. A lot of times it's not even the best to get more than one, just because they think so alike, and they could be dangerous with each other because of that. It's like having 2 siblings. They're going to be ready to fight at any time for any given reason. But if you have let's say a Frenchie and a Presa, well, the Frenchie is not going to have the same mental aptitude as a Presa, so they're not going to clash in that way of competitiveness. Mm-hmm. So for that alone, I would definitely deter people from getting a multitude of Presas, because it could be an issue. Not always, but it can be. You just don't know until you roll the dice, though. Mm. I love dogs in general. I love dogs, man. Definitely a big dog person. This is just my breed of choice at this point, for sure. I literally couldn't go with any other dogs ever again. I know too much about these guys, and we put in way too much work on our own bloodline You know, my kids, I left 2 presses, and we left a house in California for my kids, and I left them 2 presses in the house. So actually the parents of the ones that I have here. So, and they're guard dogs too. So the kids don't have any worries. They're free roaming in the house all the time. And they, you know, so kids are safe. Anybody who's got one of these dogs that have been trained properly, your house is safe. You got nothing to worry about.
And you said you have 4 adults with you at this time?
Correct, yeah. I have 4 adults right now in the house. I have 9 puppies in the living room. Two girls share a room in my house. My boy usually hangs out in my office, and then my wife's Presa, which it's my Presa, but I gave it to her. And she stays in her office. And the reason I even say that is because with my help, she trained her. She was finishing out one of her master's degree at USC, so we had to live apart from her for a while, and she ended up raising her pretty much herself, you know, with just my influence. And sure enough, she turned out to be a fantastic dog and a guard dog. So, and they've all been officially trained agitation trainers, and they're great. Like, no problems, you know. Now, that being said, yeah, they can clash, but there's just no way if we're going to leave them together. We're like really responsible owners. So we don't even, at this point, I don't even keep them outside. Just because in the neighborhood we're in is really safe now, I don't even need to leave them outside. And before, it was like I would have, in California, I would have signs all over the gates, just letting people know, hey, like, this is a dangerous place for you to be. If you pass the gate, you're not going to have a good day. You know, because there's a lot of weird rules in California now, man. People break into your house and then they'll sue you or something, you know. The United States is getting a little crazy, so you know, nowadays I get it. People want to protect their families, and being around for so long, I've heard the worst stories, and literally people will skip your home if you have a dog that is, you know, they know it's there. They're going to go for an easier target every time. So anybody who's concerned about security, they're way better off with a dog that can help protect them than just them being alone. They're looking for crimes of opportunity. They're not looking for a challenge. You know, if you're going to give them a hard challenge, they're going to, okay, I'll just go to your next door neighbor because, you know, he's got a whatever Maltese or something.
Right. How close do you breed as far as inbreeding, line breeding?
So we haven't done any line breeding in quite a long time. But that's the closest, you know, a line breeding pretty much. A mother to a son. It's happened. We've done it once, purposely. And this was just to harden some of the traits that we had, and it worked out wonderfully, actually, like perfectly, no problems whatsoever. And they're still around. They're all very solid dogs that came from that. So, but every once in a while, like, you know, we do keep it decently close, but nothing to where it would be uncalled for type of deal. And again, it's only to harden traits, which if you don't know about, you know, everything about your breed, it could be very tricky, because then you can now amplify some negative traits. So if they were prone for something that is going to affect them later on, well, you just took it to a higher limit by doing that. So it's something to just be really cautious about.
Right. When you're looking at a litter of puppies, how do you select what you're going to keep? It's been what has it been? We kept 2 pups that are my girls. We've done this a little over a year ago.
So I would say a couple things for me is definitely personality, and coat wise what we're looking for. I know it may sound a little superficial, but since I know for sure I don't have any issues with anything I breed, then I'm safe to like pick however I want. I don't particularly pick for size. As an example, Bane, I knew Bane was smaller than his brother, yet I picked him anyways, just because I just didn't want to blow out the conformation, like I said before, of, you know, having just giant dogs. I'm not out for the biggest Presa, even though we have humongous Presas. I'm just out for stability in all ways. So for these two pups that I picked out, I picked a daughter of Lucifer and Negra. Her name is Bruja, and sure enough, she is a spitting replica of her mother. Like, exactly. Exactly, 100%. Looks-wise, demeanor, mental aptitude, everything. Like, you almost can't tell them apart. Lighter in the eyes, same type of gait, everything. And the other one I picked was from Drago and Cleo, and personally, I picked her definitely for her personality. Extremely loving, really laid back. Coat was gorgeous, and yeah, I mean, like I said, I was safe to pick any of them, and I would be fine. Like I don't have problems to where I'm like, oh no, is this going to be a bad one? And then I pick something and I don't want to incorporate it into my program. They've all been like perfect. Any of the ones that I've sold are just impeccable. You can literally breed them all, which I'm definitely against. I don't want my clients doing whatever they want and starting their own Mickey Mouse program. But yeah, I mean, pretty much I can definitely say I'm very happy with each and every single one that I've picked. You're gonna have different personalities a lot of times for sure too. So people need to understand that I guess if they want something specific to kind of maybe think past the aesthetics a little bit, and you know, maybe ask your breeder, hey, this is the type of personality that I'm looking to match with. You know, if you're more rambunctious, you're going to want that rambunctious type of dog, which is like Bruja. She's really rambunctious. She's over the top. And so is her mom. Like, they want to play around. They want to mess around. They want to have fun. They're like a bull in a china shop. Raven is pretty calmed down until she's happy. And then she like lets loose, but she's really relaxed, very loving, really emotional. And you can see that. And they're all protectors. So it's like, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, but you know, it really varies on like what you're looking for in the end. And I think a lot of people miss that. They should be asking that question of like, hey, this is what I plan to do, if they can figure it out at that time. Because, you know, of course, if you're selling them early, maybe not early, but maybe not late, you know, 8 weeks is pretty early to find out who's who personality wise. So it may be a little bit more difficult for somebody to ascertain their litter that early, I suppose.
Right. What does the diet look like for your dogs?
So we give them a mix of dry and raw. I never do all raw, just because you can stretch your ligaments and stuff. Giving them too much protein, as odd as that sounds, but it can happen. So we definitely do a dry food with raw. So for instance, we'll use like Diamond typically. We'll fortify that with raw eggs, with extra carbs, and like salmon oil. We use a turmeric, what is this, like a turmeric broth mix, so it's got some vitamins in it. I do keep Ultra 24 on hand, which has raw or crude protein in it. Throws that in there, has a ton of vitamins in there as well. And gosh, what else? I'm sure there's other things in there. My wife's usually the cook for the dogs, but yeah, I try to mix it up. I don't want to hit them with all proteins or just too much carbs and whatnot. So we definitely want to balance that out as much as possible.
Yeah. Do you feed females who are pregnant or whelping? Do you feed them differently?
Yes, most definitely. So for them, they're going to get a huge amount of nutrients at first. Towards the end, we definitely stop giving them carbs pretty much, and they start getting way more protein. I have had an incident to where I totally forgot to cut carbs, and they were huge. They were like way too huge to where one got stuck in her canal, and I'm like, oh my God, like, you need help. And I started like slightly tugging on it, I always help them give birth. And she's like, oh, she let out a yelp. I'm like, oh, great. What are we going to do now? So like a savage, she turns around and just pulls that puppy out. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe you. And we ripped open the placenta, help it breathe, and good to go. But yeah, definitely something to be concerned with, like not too much carbs. Just make sure they're always eating really well. When they have the pups, I give them a chicken stock, bone broth. I boil a bunch of like chicken legs, rip all the chicken off of it, and give them that, because if it's something that they don't want to eat at first, they're not going to eat. They're going to starve themselves, and they're going to deplete their nutrition just giving the baby stuff. And plus, they've already ate the placentas, which is good. But I want them to have some nourishment, liquid, so that way they have great milk development, which is really, really big. So definitely, I'm feeding them totally different.
Okay. So, what's your favorite registry and why?
So we're basically dual registered through UKC and FCI. At this point, we've pretty much just been using UKC for the longest time. We do have a very, very old stock in the AKC registry. This is before they were acknowledging Presa Canario. It's been forever, so I don't even know what's come of that. That was done with my mentor ages ago. I really can't say favorite wise. I would say it's just more of utilization of just keeping record, really. The FCI's been good, but then since we're dual registered, it's just so many papers to go across. So we've pretty much just stuck with UKC for the longest time. I guess it's more out of convenience, if I'm brutally honest. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What advice would you give somebody wanting to get into the Presa?
Wow. Well, definitely take your time, do your homework. Every breeder's going to have different agendas of what they're trying to do. Whether it's, I've seen some are over the top with like protection work per se, but is that good for everybody? Maybe not. Or I've seen some that are just like, they don't do anything with them, or they're not raised right. It's like, well, now you can be getting something that's possibly mentally unsound because it hasn't had experience in anything. I've been around a lot of Presas specifically that have like no idea what to do with their lives. And I know a lot of that is directly from their initial raising. So my biggest advice would just be, take your time. It's going to be a 10 plus year commitment. Look to see what your breeders are doing. If it's something that touches your heart, then look into them further. And, I wouldn't wouldn't cut corners. You know, it's like if you want something that is done that right, well, don't think that you're not gonna spend 5-10 grand with me and then get it from, you know, some random dude for $500 expecting the exact same thing. It's just not gonna happen. Right. So do your due diligence.
Right. And what are some of the ways you screen your customers?
Man, honestly, I worked for a private investigator for 2 years, and we were doing some hardcore skip tracing on banks. So I know how to hear certain things that are being told to me right when I get the conversation. I know how much detail they're putting into this, what they're looking to do. I can ask questions to where it's very easy for me to understand, hey, this is what this guy's trying to do with this dog. Some people are pretty honest about it. Some people, you can hear reservations with it. In the end, I guess the client that I would prefer is somebody who's looking for a companion, and whether that's within the guarding nature or just a friendly companion. I just want our dog to have a good life with that person, because if that person gives them the chance to do that, they will definitely have an enhanced life. If they don't, and they're just looking to add a dog, like literally I had a call before we had gone on the phone, and the guy's like, oh, well, I have 100 acres and I'm looking for a friend for my other dog. I'm like, oh, brother. I'm like, I literally told him, like, you can get 100 other dogs that are going to do a better job. This dog wants to be around you. And if you're not going to give him that relationship, why even bother? You're just not going to get the outcome you're looking for, especially like with me. Like, why are you going to spend this type of money with me and not put in that effort? So that's what I would say that my perfect client would be, I suppose, you know, is somebody who's looking to have this dog be a part of their family. Whether they're alone, they have a family of 4, doesn't matter. Incorporate them into your family. Best dog ever. Otherwise, like, man, it's just going to be a hell of a cool looking dog, and the dog doesn't know sit, you know. There used to be a bumper sticker. It was like spelled differently. It was supposed to say shit, but it was like, yeah, your dog doesn't know sit, you know, but like literally. So it's like that, man. You know, you got to put in your effort.
So one belief that I have personally, and a lot of people do not agree with me, is once a dog is a certain size, or I'll say fiery enough, I flat out do not let them around children who are under the age of 10. How would you say your dogs react around smaller people, children, dogs, things like that?
That's a good point. That's definitely a good point. And I could see why. They're kids are, you know, weird. They're crazy. They're jumping around. They don't act like adults. They're doing a lot of things that are just not normal for any dog, right? So yeah, I would agree. I don't really bring them around kids, and if I do, I don't keep my eyes off my dog, and I don't keep my eyes off the child, because they're likely to do something weird, and the dog is gonna react to it, whether it's jumping, rolling around, acting like a crazy person. That, you know, they're kids, right? They're just free. They don't have any rules. So, and the dogs, they're not aware of that. They don't know what's going on. So yeah, that's pretty good advice. I wouldn't really bring them around them. And if you are, I mean, you better be watching out. Like, don't be having a drink. Don't be talking to your friend. Like, that's the time for your dog to bond with that kid, per se. And you better be looking at their face, their body language, everything. Because it's just too fast. You have a couple seconds to react, and that's all you have. And then, you know, imagine that kid's gonna have, like, will be traumatized, if not scarred, you know, something worse off. So yeah, that's solid advice, man. I probably in general, yeah, I probably wouldn't bring, any dogs around any kids.
Yeah,
So.
Another thing I kind of wanted to touch on was back when you were talking about, you said if you don't want this dog to be a part of your life, then don't bother. I mean, I've been stressing that to people, especially guys who want to get into the breeding game, or that they have big dreams to want to breed a dog, and it's just like, you haven't even enjoyed raising a dog yet. You think you're just going to get 2 dogs and breed them, and it's just going to be money and
Exactly.
it's going to be good times all the way around. And that's, number one, 9 out of 10, that's not true. Most breeders that I know don't even start making money till the 2nd or 3rd generation of their program. And number 2, like, it's just kind of shitty. Like, enjoy the dog. Like, why does it have to be? Now, don't get me wrong, I've bred dogs and I like breeding dogs when it calls for it, because I have very specific things that I'm after in a dog. But on top of that, though, I want to enjoy the dog. I want the dog to be a part of my life. I want to hang out with the dog and love on the dog and train the dog, and there's no greater feeling than you wanting the dog to do something, and once the dog understands finally what you wanted it to do and that light bulb moment happens, it's a great feeling. So, like, I mean, I know this isn't for you. I'm stressing this more for the people listening, that, man, just enjoy having a dog. Like, it doesn't have to, just because you have a dog, or maybe you have 2 dogs, it doesn't automatically mean you should be breeding,
100%. I would totally agree with you. So this is, and me being around for so long, and again, why I don't sell to breeders is because of that. Like, they see us, we have an impeccable reputation, we've been around forever, we have a premium bloodline, and they're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a dog from you. I'm going to get another dog from somebody else who's got a great reputation too. I'm going to start a business.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Like, that is it. That's their formula. And they're like, okay, well, you can sell them for this much, so can I. And even if I can't, I can sell them for half of that, and I would still make great money. But that is not the reality whatsoever. Like, nobody knows them. Nobody knows what they're doing. They have many years to come to get to that rapport. Mm-hmm. And it's a dirty business. It's like, it's such a pain in the butt to do it. It's so hard if you want to do it like right, with any type of ethics involved. It's a real pain in the ass. And then what happens in the end is these people will fail, and then these dogs end up getting given away, sold for nothing, because they're like, oh yeah, I can't sell them for that now. This dog's like half a year old. Mm-hmm. I've been feeding them all this kibble. I've been doing all this work. They're tearing everything apart. And now I just got to give them away, get them off my property. I got called yesterday from this dude who they wanted to give me their presses. They have a son, and the son went overseas. The presses are tearing everything up, and they're like, oh, we just need to give them away. Mm. I'm like, I can't take them. I don't have a kennel. Right. Even if I did, I probably just won't. I'm like not a rescue. I'm not going to take people's dogs, but it happens all the time. Not just with this breed, but man, countless breeds. Mm. It's pretty unfortunate, but I mean, I get it. It's everybody wants to make money, and they're kind of looking for an easy way of doing it, assuming that this is easy, but it's not. Like, me and my wife have been sick. We had COVID, and then we had like the flu B. We've been sick for like 6 weeks straight. We've had 2 litters, like back to back, which we only have 4 litters a year. And luckily it was only 9 pups. But I'm like, oh yeah, I've been cleaning up shit like forever. And it's in the house. So I have to be like so fast about it, because this is a new house, and so I don't have like a whelping room. Like, normally I'd have it act like the head of the ship. So I have a carbon filter fan, like sucking the air out of the house through that room, so the house doesn't smell like complete shit, all the time. Yeah, people don't understand that, man. They're like, like, that's cool. Like, they raise them in a barn, whatever. That's just not me. I have to be there. Like, I couldn't I can't live with myself if I go into like a barn and like, you know, whatever, mom killed 1 or 2 pups, or, I mean, because stuff happens. I've had the moms, like, they'll get frustrated being in there, and they'll, like, if I'm not in there in time, like, they'll do some wicked stuff. Mm-hmm. I've had females turn on my other litters, you know, and it's like, dude, it's wild. People don't even understand the negative parts of doing this. They just see the money. They don't see the time involved, the amount of care. Like, it's difficult, man. It's super difficult. So, you know, for me, I do have my partners to where, like, if anybody who's a client of mine and they want to breed, and I tell them straight up, I'm like, please don't ever breed this dog. If you want to breed, come back to me. We can set something up. We will pay you handsomely for it. We'll show you what to do. And we'll make sure that there's not going to be any issues. But obviously, you know, it's going to be hella work. So at least at that, they don't have to worry about the selling part of it. They could just, like, enjoy the puppies, pick up an extreme amount of shit, and, you know, just enjoy them. Like, because otherwise now, people forget about this part too. You're doing that. You're doing all that maintenance, all that stuff, and you still have to talk to people and sell them. And now imagine, like, how a lot of these people are. They're like, oh yeah, come over, come pick one out. You're bringing how many people over your house with how much of that, of that, like, disease on them or something, you know? What if they just lost a dog to parvo? Mm-hmm. You know, they're bringing their shoes over here, you know, like, you know, oh yeah, sure, you can have them bleach your shoes. How many people do that though? Right. Like, they're bringing that over your house, and you, like you just said it, you can't even vaccinate them until a certain time frame, unless you're giving them neopars. But still, like, that stuff is now into your yard for what, 6-8 months. Like, and then, you know what, they're going to bring all their kids are going to step all over them. Man, forget all that. I don't play that game. Right. I'm like, you pick them online. You already have enough resources for you to see what we have. Like, we're not doing play dates.